Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So in this video we're going to have a look at the columns class to HGSR and get an understanding of what they mean. Class is very simply how many classes that horse has gone up or down, or whether they're running in the same class as last time out. This can help identify horses going up in class that may be too high up in class, or potentially horses that are dropping massively in class and yet they still ran well last time, so they might be able to potentially win this time. One thing we must note, in both National Hunt and flat races, we separate listed, group and grade 1, group and grade 2, and group and grade 3 as different classes. So a horse who's running in a group 3, for example, and then next time it ran in a group 1, that would be given a +2, saying it's gone up 2 classes. And similarly, the other way, it would say -2 if it was dropping from a group 1 to a group 3. So that's something to bear in mind when looking at the classes. Sex, this is the sex of the horse, where you can get geldings, horse, colt, filly, and mare. That's just the sex of the horse, and that's straightforward, as is age. This is the age of the horse. If you're not aware, all race horses, age on the 1st of January. So if there was 5 horses that were 3-year-olds last year, as soon as it became the 1st of January, they would all become 4-year-olds. Something you should definitely try and look into, because you'll sometimes find that a 2-year-old may not be 2 at all. It may only be like 1.5, whereas you could get a 2-year-old who's significantly older, running against a much younger 2-year-old, and 3-year-olds especially. That's where it can be very key. Days, this is the amount of days that horse last ran. So Caravan of Hope and Australis obviously both ran against each other. They last ran 18 days before this race. King's Advice was 13. Rashun, for example, was 220. Magic Circle was 373. And as you can see, it was in a much better race. It was in a group race. But he is still too high in the handicap. 17 days. And even the non-runners, it still tells us Technological hadn't run for 397 days and still hasn't returned. So we'll move on to these H columns. HSR simply stands for horse strike rate, and this is the horse's strike rate over all of its runs. So Caravan of Hope before today was 2 from 8. King's Advice was 8 from 15. Obviously, he went on a winning spree a couple of years ago. Cosmelly is 3 from 33. Glencadam Glory is 2 from 11, and the percentages are displayed. If you hover over the percentages, more details are given, including their place percentages. So you can see Caravan of Hope, although he's only won twice, he's placed on 7 of his 8 runs. Australis was also good at 5 of 8. Let's have a look at Cosmelly, for example. He had placed on 7 of his 33. And you also get the Win AE and the Win P&L. AE is a column or a statistic that there is a blog about, and if you want to find that, you can find that in our blog section up here. HCSR simply stands for horse course strike rate. This is the strike rate of the horse at the course. So King's Advice had been here twice and had been beaten twice and hadn't placed even. Anyone Can Have It All had been here twice, had won once, and obviously had placed once. Smart Champion had been here once and won once. If these columns are blank, like this means they haven't run at the course, or they haven't had a run at the distance, and we'll explain what further these ones mean in a second. Moving on to HTSR, this is the horse type strike rate. So the different types of races, this is more prevalent on looking between horses on the all-weather and the turf, which we call flat, and also maybe hurdles and chases. You'll find some horses on the flat, for example, are very good, but as soon as they come to the all-weather, they're nowhere near as good. So differences between these statistics are very, very important. For example, this horse here, Rainbow Dreamer, is 9 from 28 on the turf, but he's 5 from 6 on the all-weather, so he's very, very good on the all-weather. Who else could there be? Maybe this one. Glencladden Glory was 1 from 1 on the all-weather at the time. Hiroshima was also 1 from 1 on the all-weather, because that's the type of race. Just going back, how do we find the type of race? It's up here. Race type, all-weather flat. Moving on to the next column, it's horse distance. Again, Caravan of Hope and Australis had never run over this distance, so they had blanks. We don't give them 0% because that harshly penalises them for something they've never done. King's Advice had run twice over this distance and had been beaten on both occasions. Anyone Can Have It All was 2 from 3 over this distance, and so on and so forth. Smart Champion was 1 from 1. HDTSR, horse distance type. So this is a combination of both of these two. So the horse with the distance and type. So only when they are, it's an and. So if a horse had run at Newcastle on the all-weather, so the all-weather type, and over 2 mile, D, distance, it would have been calculated in here. And King's Advice had done this twice and had finished unplaced on both of his runs. Anyone Can Have It All had run over this distance and type twice and had won one of them, and we can check out all the others. So Cosmelli had tried this distance and type 9 times and he'd won one of them and placed 3 times. He's now placed 4 times after finishing 4th here. HCDSR is course and distance. So now we're looking at the course, Newcastle, and the distance, 2 mile. And again, King's Advice had been here and over this distance twice and had been beaten on both occasions. Cosmelli is probably the best one to use here. As we can see, he'd run over the 2 mile trip at Newcastle 8 times and he'd won one of them and placed twice. The final column that we're looking at here is horse going strike rate. The going, again, you can be found up here, and it was standard to slow. And if we go back along to the horses, we can see Caravan of Hope had never run on standard to slow, but the likes of Rainbow Dreamer were 4 from 4 on standard to slow. Denmead was 2 from 5 and had actually placed all 5 occasions on standard to slow, but probably in easier races. So that's the columns class to HGSR covered. Again, any questions, do let me know.